Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. It's going to be a weird week, as you guys all certainly know. I'm obviously not here again today. It's the second day of Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to go through some information about the first part of the Civil War up to, but not going much past Gettysburg. And then, you'll have an assignment to do that talks about a soldier's life. I'll talk about that in a second. First, a couple of announcements. Obviously, I hope that you and your families stay safe. It's gonna be a hurricane this week. We're not gonna have a test on Friday. There's just no way we can do it. I don't think we're even going to have school, but even if we do, there is no way that we can have a test. Ms. Funston and I will send out an announcement rescheduling the test. It will almost certainly be next week, but I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know. I do want to tell you that the study guide is still due on Thursday. Unless something dramatically changes, you have the ability to work on it at home. You had it for almost a week. It will still be due on Thursday, but of course that's anything is subject to change, and I'll send out an announcement if that changes. So anyway, let's get going. So we're gonna, as the war gets started, both sides think it was gonna be easy. The America didn't have much experience with wars. We'd fought against Mexico about 20 years earlier, and that was pretty easy. We were significantly stronger than they were. Now this side was ready. The soldiers who were fighting had not seen any war. The generals and the other officers were not particularly seasoned. They thought it would be easy. They thought it would be kind of a fun, patriotic adventure. And we'll see quickly that is going to change. This is in many ways the first, I'm going to kind of put everything up here so you can see it, modern war. We're going to have railroads. We're going to have steamships. Did not exist in the Mexican-American War. We're going to have telegraphs, which means that the generals can receive orders from either Richmond in the Confederates case or Washington in the case of the Union by telegraph very, very, very quickly. There are rifles, which are much more accurate than muskets. There are cannons. There are much longer range weapons. I will say this again and again this year. Humans are not good at anything as much as we're good at finding new ways to kill each other. That will be a particular point of emphasis as we get into World War I. This is, of course, the first time we're having sort of industrialization. There's mass-produced uniforms, tents. We all know that the North has a substantial advantage in that, given that they are much more industrialized and focused on manufacturing, but the South can do that as well to some extent. And we're going to have photography. There's actually going to be pictures of this war for the first time. There would not have been any for previous wars. There are going to be reporters embedded, meaning sort of situated alongside soldiers, that were going to be giving firsthand accounts that appear in newspapers throughout the country on a daily basis. So this is the first modern war. And I mean that in a sense that it's going to be a brutal, brutal series of battles. We're going to talk about what life was like a little bit when I get back on, well, whatever date that's going to be. But there's going to be, their conditions are going to be awful. They're going to have a lot of downtime punctuated by extreme terror of fighting. So I'll talk about this assignment after I go through Manassas, after I go through Gettysburg. But I do want to, I want you guys to think what it would be like if you were a 19 or 20-year-old kid, no experience fighting, who was just fighting for, not even a particular cause, just fighting because everyone else from your town area, even your state, was doing it. These videos are all posted. I'll talk about them later. The first major battle was what we call the first battle of Bull Run, or the first battle of Manassas. The North refers to it by bodies of water. So Bull Run is a creek. The South tends to refer to battles by the nearest town, which is Manassas. This battle was fought about 3-ish months after Fort Sumter. It was fought a little bit west of Washington, D.C. It was brutally hot, 90 to 95 degrees. These soldiers are wearing wool uniforms. It is absolutely a brutal day. And that is even before, people are fighting and there's gunpowder and horses and everything that makes the temperature even hotter. Well, why Bull Run? Why Manassas? It was an important supply depot. This is a place where there were a lot of Confederate soldiers. They were massed there. And the United States and Abraham Lincoln were getting impatient. They wanted to fight a war. Fort Sumter had been 3 months earlier. They wanted this to kind of get going. Weren't going to just allow the Confederate States to secede without facing any punishment. And for this, and for only this battle, politicians actually bring picnics and bring their families out to Manassas to watch the war. Manassas was, like I said, 35 miles west of DC. It was, maybe a trip of a couple days for families. They knew the battle was going to happen. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it becomes almost immediately clear that bringing families and bringing picnics out to watch the war was a bad call. The other reason why this battle was important is because the 90-day enlistments for many Union soldiers were about up. They hadn't seen really any fighting, and really the Lincoln and the American government wanted to make sure that they were used and not just being paid for doing nothing. The Union, that would be the North, their leaders were General McDowell and General Sherman. We will talk about Sherman a lot whenever our next class day is, but keep his name in the back of your head. The Southern leaders were P.G.T. Beauregard, Joseph Johnston, and Thomas Stonewall Jackson, one of the greatest generals of the Southern Army, the Confederate Army. He is going to be killed not too long after this, but keep him in your head. So, order of battle means what happened. You're not going to go into this too deeply, but the Union attacks first early in the morning. He's successful. He pushes the Confederates across Bull Run to the top of Henry Hill. The Confederates are basically retreating. Pretty much over at this point. It could have been, at least. This is Bull Run. This is the actual battlefield. Anybody who's had a chance to go there, it's a very cool trip. Georgia soldier was unhappy. This is unfair. Someone is to blame for getting us all killed. I didn't come here to fight this way. I wish the earth would crack open and let me drop in. Another picture of the battlefield today. The Confederate reinforcements are going to start arriving. They arrived by train. As I said, this is a railroad, sort of major railroad stop. And these new Confederate reinforcements led by Stonewall Jackson, they come and they push the Union back. And really, if they had pushed the Union back much further, they would have actually gotten to Washington, D.C. There is the famous line, "There stands Jackson like a stone wall," which is where Thomas Jackson gets his nickname. You see in this picture, this is a picture of Mr. Hugick standing in front of a statue of Stonewall Jackson there on the Manassas battlefield. By midday, the Confederate lines stop retreating. Then they take a break for lunch. This was a very genteel battle. Both sides take a break. They have a lunch. They kind of regroup and are allowed to sort of deal with their wounded and their dead. Cannons. The battlefield today, after lunch, the Union attacks again. The Union troops are very close to forcing the Confederates to surrender. But again, Confederate reinforcements arrive on the railroad and they push the Union back. And the Union is forced to retreat sort of in a state of disarray. It's a sort of devastating loss for the Union. As you hear, this is a comment: cavalry horses without riders, wrecked baggage wagons and pieces of artillery drawn by 6 horses without drivers, flying at their utmost speed and whacking against other vehicles, produced a noise like a hurricane at sea. I'm not sure that Colonel Erasmus Keyes knows what a hurricane at sea sounds like, but probably kind of like that. I don't really know. This is if you want to know more about the Battle of Bull Run, you can certainly watch this video. We're not going to ask you lots of questions about the actual military history, but you should know that this battle was a major it was a Confederate victory. At least it was not a Confederate loss. Let's put it that way. The Union lost 2,800 troops. South lost 1,200. And so that you could say that's, a point in the favor of the South. The Union realizes that they're going to need to work really hard. They realize that this is going to be much more challenging than they expected, but there's always going to be this sense that they don't know if they can beat the Confederates. And we'll talk about that really when I'm back. Confederates, this is a morale boost. They believe that they can win every battle. They believe that they're going to be able to force the Union to at some point just give up. And then what the other point is the leaders are going to figure out, hey, we're going to get cocky. We can just beat them. We're much stronger than them. We're fighting for something in which we believe very strongly. And they're going to underestimate really Abraham Lincoln more than anything else. That's the Battle of First Manassas, first major battle of the war. sort of to go up, we're to jump ahead a little bit because really we're not going to spend too much time on the actual fighting of the Civil War. By the end of 1862 and early 1863, um, the South is doing pretty well. Lee's army, that's generally the general of the Confederacy, is being refreshed after a bloody battle at Antietam. They've scored some big wins at Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. They have momentum, but are they going to have enough supplies? And this is something I talked about last week, is that the North just has such a significant advantage in manufacturing, resources, people, money, trading ability with other countries, that the longer the war goes on, the more the tables are going to turn against the South. And I do want to point out that in the West, the South is starting to lose some battles here along the Mississippi River, especially at Vicksburg, which means the North is going to be able to cut off the Mississippi. The South can't move troops up and down by steamship. The general in charge of the West was Ulysses S. Grant, who's eventually going to be the general of the entire Union Army and president. In 1862 for the North is the leadership and results. They need more generals in the East. The blockade, which we'll talk about in a second, is being successful. They were having a lot of success in the West, like I just said. And Ulysses S. Grant is developing a reputation. He is going to be looked at as the next major leader of the Union. I do want you to sort of take a look at this. You see the South surrounded by a snake. And this is the plan called the Anaconda Plan by General Winfield Scott to blockade the South, meaning not to allow anything in or out, to strangle the South's ability to receive supplies from other countries or to trade, or just to move troops, between Confederate states. This is going to be incredibly successful. It's a very, very, very successful plan, and it's going to really hurt the South's ability to have enough supplies. By the end of the war, the South is basically starving. Again, this is what I just talked about. You can certainly go through this. And now we come to Gettysburg, which is in July of 1863. We'll talk a little bit, and we can discuss it when I'm back, about whether the Union won the battle or the Confederates lost. But regardless, what's going to end up happening, you see Gettysburg is the last major battle in the North. It's in southern Pennsylvania. The effect of this is going to be that the South is only going to be in retreat from that forward. So why the battle in Gettysburg? Pennsylvania is kind of an odd place to fight. First of all, it's to relieve Virginia. The vast majority of fighting is taking place in Virginia, at least the fighting on this side, and the state need to break. The South, and especially Robert E. Lee, thought that they could break the will of the Union, win this battle at Gettysburg, and the Union might start to fold. A lot of people in the North are already saying, "Is this worth it? Do we really care? We don't have slavery. Why don't we just let them do what they want to do?" And the other thing is, Lee thought that, hey, if we win here, we can push down to Washington, D.C. Maybe actually just win the war. And this is Gettysburg. Anybody who's had a chance to go, it's huge, much, much, much larger than Manassas. It's a multiple kind of day kind of trip of exploration. Not that far from D.C. really. So you have General Meade there on the left. He had 91,000 Union troops. On the right, you had Robert E. Lee with 71,000. This is a large battle. This is not something to be, thought of as a tiny sort of encounter. This is a huge battle in the Civil War. Day one starts in the actual town of Gettysburg and up on Culp's Hill. The Confederates have some good success. Again, pictures here. The Union retreats to the high ground. So they have this sort of ridge of hills. This is day one. Again, I'm not going to ask you this military history. On day two, the Confederates attack both ends of the battlefield, but are sort of pushed back. The North still holds this high ground. On day three, General Lee makes a decision. And this decision is really going to cost the South the battle and ultimately the war. He could either retreat or find better territory. He could try to go around the Union. He could launch a full-scale assault on the Union center, or he could wait for the Union to do anything. What he's going to do is launch a full-scale assault right into the center of the Union line. And guys, this is just saying it out loud sounds incredibly stupid, but the Confederates are going to run right uphill for an entire mile into the Union sort of gunfire. I'm going to shock you when I say this doesn't really work. The South loses. there are approximately 150,000 people who fought, 51,000 casualties, meaning 51,000 wounded and dead, of both sides. And from this point forward, as we'll talk about when I get back, it's all downhill for the Confederates. They're not going to have a chance to fight in the North again. It's going to be a matter of time until the war is over. They lost a tremendous amount of good soldiers. They're in retreat. Robert E. Lee takes the blame for the loss. He says, it's my fault. It's all my fault. Well, yeah. Okay. Union citizens, this is a big morale boost for the North. The Union Army goes stronger. The Union Army gains confidence. They think that they can win. Of course, what we in many ways know the Battle of Gettysburg for is also Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, which he gave a few months later when they came back to dedicate a battlefield. I'm not going to read it here. This is the speech. It's short. There's a video here that seems not to be working at the moment, but it's the speech being performed. You can find it if you want to. Anyway, that's the Battle of Gettysburg, which is really where I want to stop today. I do want you to, if you will, indulge me for a quick second. I do want you to look at the assignment that I've posted on Canvas. The assignment which is called A Soldier's Life, September 22nd. I'll open this. All right. There are the 3 videos I talked about. There's the worksheet that I want you to do. You can work with one other person. It doesn't need to be in your either number or color group. And based on the videos, based on this ABC Clear article or whatever else you find, I want you to describe what a soldier's life would be like on a sort of daily basis in terms of sanitation. That's hygiene, how clean things are, what kind of diseases they might have, food, family, religion, entertainment, and then how they train for battle. All right, I have this set to be due on Friday at 8:15. I don't know what the rest of the week is going to be like. I don't think anybody of us does. I will update the due date as necessary. But ladies and gentlemen, for now, I hope that you have a good day. I will see you hopefully on Friday. If not, I will certainly see you next week. Take care.